Okay, welcome, folks. This is Talking with Gen Z. This is episode 4. We've been talking about boomers, X, Y, and my favorite generation, which is Gen Z, who happens to be here in this room with me today. This is the future of our planet. I will say that the boomers, X and Y, are not very optimistic about Gen Z. Matter of fact, they don't have very many good things to say about Gen Z. But I actually think that you are making the world a better place. And the change that you're making is dramatic. And it's having an impact bottom up. Like, you are impacting the boomers and X way more than they're impacting you. So the boomers were born kind of 1946 to 61. I'm not quite a boomer. I'm more of an X, but the boomers were workaholics, builders, pretty competitive. Gen Z came after the boomers. Gen Z was 61 to 81. They were the doers. You all know these people. They chase money and work, but they really fear losing both. I mean, they're chasing money and work, but they fear losing both. They invented the term work-life balance, and then they totally ignored it and just worked like crazy and had no work-life balance. So I don't know if that's what's ideal. It's not what you guys want. I know that from the empirical research. So I'm going to advance and we're going to start talking about episode number 4. And episode number 4 really focuses on you guys. And you have been left a lot of burdens, right? Like, you have to deal, and I don't know if you feel this pressure. You can agree with me or disagree with me. We have global warming. We have polluted the planet. We have food insecurity. 1% of the population has all the money, and you're going to have to fix all this. But the one thing I notice is that you're really strong on diversity. Like, you don't even notice diversity until it's not there. So if I show you a picture of a boardroom and it's all older white men in the boardroom, you're going to notice that. Like, you don't notice diversity until it's not there, and then all of a sudden, hey, that's not diverse. So I don't think you guys are as tolerant, which is good. I mean, you've grown up with these devices. You're actually addicted to these devices, but it's not your fault. All of these devices create dopamine in your brains. So yeah, you manage all your devices, you use your phones and your laptops, and you're really good at it. But you are addicted because it creates dopamine. But we did that to you. That's not your fault. So you're a little bit less tolerant. Any friction, if you encounter friction in a process, could be politics, e-commerce, anything basically. If you've gone to a website and it didn't work out, you're probably not going to go back. You kind of feel as if politicians are moving backwards, especially on climate, like on climate change, social change, minorities. People say things, I mean, you say things like, okay, boomers. Like, when I say something like that, if somebody says something, like at Thanksgiving recently, somebody said, one of my relatives, something just ridiculous politically. And I said, okay, boomer. That's not a positive term. That's just me. He didn't know what it meant, but that was just me saying, okay, you're totally wrong. You just don't know it. So Gen X actually is controlling the majority right now. They're controlling a little bit of Gen Y and Gen Z, but we just had our first Gen Z politician elected at the federal office. And you guys are starting to vote a lot more than you did in the past. So when you say, okay, boomer, the boomers tend to be on the wrong side of history. They've polluted the planet. They've created food insecurity. They took all the good jobs. They really left the millennials. The millennials are pretty disgruntled, but the millennials have split in two. This is a generation before you. The millennials are split in two. They were kind of, half of them went out and got jobs and got married and had kids. And the other half of the millennials are living in their parents' basement. So, and the millennials that say they're entitled are the first group that actually went out and got jobs. And it was weird because I went to some of my relatives' baseball games, and I'm like, this is millennial. I said, what's the score? And they're like, oh, we don't keep score. We just give out participation ribbons. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't keep score? And they're like, oh, we don't keep score. That would be wrong. And they had like, what I guess we'll call like snowplow parents or helicopter parents. And I had to interview a millennial once. He was 25. And this is a major corporation. He said, can I bring my mom with me to the interview? And I'm like, no, you can't bring your mother to the interview. And when he came in, he was basically a blithering idiot because his parents had been organizing his play dates since he was like 4. And there was never any score. He just got participation ribbons. And your parents didn't do that. The one thing I will say about Gen Z is you guys are very independent, and your parents did an awesome job of raising you because you are very self-sufficient, independent. You didn't have helicopter parents. I have a friend in New York. Her 9-year-old daughter takes the subway to school, and her friends are freaked out. They're like, you can't let her take the subway, but she's fine. She's independent. She's okay. She won't be a blithering idiot when she grows up because she's growing to learn how to do things on her own, which I think is healthy. So Gen Z, you guys are more likely to use YouTube. And one of the reasons you guys use YouTube, I think you also tend to use TikTok, Instagram. I mean, I used to use Facebook, but then you created Facebook and then the boomers all got on it. Once the boomers got on it, you guys kind of left. But Gen Z is more likely to use YouTube because you like real people. In your content, you tend to like real people. You don't like celebrities. And you have your whole own language. Like, those kicks are tripping. Or the truth. Like no cap. Or agree is fact. You have your entire language that you developed on your own. So I think Gen Z is fast becoming, you are the most well-educated generation of all time. But you have a lot of humility. You ask others about their needs. And I've noticed when you like face-to-face being in the present. Like when you talk to people, you like being in the present. And when you ask someone about their needs, you do it with kind of a joyful curiosity that I don't see in the other, like the other generations will say, how's your day going? Or we should get together sometime. They don't mean it. I think you guys do. So Gen Z, I think, is going to restore politics to general dialogue. I mean, right now we have, our politics is so split that we have, the ideologues on one side and then the do-gooders on the other side. You guys, you're kind of like Republican the way you think financially, but on a social aspect, you're a little bit more liberal. So I think you are going to eliminate everything that happened January 6th. I don't think you were very happy with that. And I think you're going to eliminate any potential for a repeat of what happened on January 6th. I mean, you guys got whiplash because we kind of went from Obama to Trump, and you got whiplash pretty quickly from that move. But, my 5-year-old niece, she had a black president. And I also call her on the phone, and we only use FaceTime. So she's 5. She's never used a phone that doesn't have a face. So for her, she's only ever used FaceTime. So it's not new technology if you don't remember the old technology. So for her, FaceTime is not something new. It's just a phone. And if I gave her a phone that didn't have FaceTime, she'd say, "What's that?" That's not a phone. Because that's just the way that she's been brought up. So millennials and Gen Y are definitely, I believe, the weaker generations. Gen Y was born 1980 to 1996. And they're the ones where some of them are living in their parents' basements. And some of them went out and got jobs and got married. But they tend to be a little disgruntled. They're mad at the boomers for, the financial crisis in 2008. You guys were impacted. Gen Z, which is you were born 1996 to 2015. And I think the Ys are a little bit weaker, a little bit more selfish, a little bit more entitled. Other than placing a microbrewery on every corner, which the millennials did that. I don't know how they managed to accomplish that, but they put a microbrewery on the corner of every street, which was, the millennials did that. They like taking selfies, and they're foodies. That's what they do. They clearly blame the boomers for creating the problems that they feel are impeding their financial success. So all of Gen Y, basically, they don't have, they went to college, but the jobs they got had nothing to do with their degrees. They just took any job they could get because they really got hammered by the financial crisis of 2008. And that's when the Gen Y split. Some of them got married, got good jobs, and have careers, and others are just living in their parents' basements. So that's kind of where Gen Y is much different than you are. So Gen Y is kind of a grievance culture, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of comments on this, but the millennials are kind of a grievance culture. They use ageist terms like "okay, boomer," or "you're slower than a boomer," or "you're slower than Gen X." Gen Y really does not believe that hard work gets you far or even guarantees success. They live in a gig economy, so a lot of the jobs, they might drive an Uber or drive a Lyft, but they don't really trust the values of the older boomers. But it's funny, they are supporting Gen Z, which is you guys, because you guys are making changes, and you're making positive changes, socially, diversity, socially. You are making a lot of positive changes, and they will support Gen Z if you're improving the planet. And I actually think you're making the planet a more beautiful place. And there's a lot of pressure on you to do that. So just to go over some of the questions. Now, there are a few YouTubers that ask questions in Times Square. So it's questions like, how many dimes are there in a dollar? What would you guys say? How many nickels? 20. What two countries border the U.S.? Canada and Mexico. Name two countries other than the U.S. Spain and Italy. So you just answered all those questions, and they're interviewing Gen Z in Times Square, and they can't answer those questions. The one girl said, "What's a dime? Is that 5 cents or 10 cents?" Somebody said that the two countries that border the U.S. are Puerto Rico and Saudi Arabia. So, they're making Gen Z look out to be genetically inferior. And they're not. Gen Z is the smartest, best educated generation we have. So they recognize that, and I think they will support you once they see just how much you are improving people's lives. So Gen Y they call themselves woke, but they're kind of lazy. They won the participation ribbons. They didn't really compete. I remember going to a high school, and over the mirror it said, "You are looking at the most special, wonderful person in the world." And I'm saying, who's reinforcing that? Like, what have you accomplished? But that generation was the ribbon generation. The helicopter parents protected them so much that they never had an opportunity to fail. And in stark contrast, you guys, Gen Z, are very independent. I've been working with Gen Z for several years now. You guys are the most independent, self-reliant people. You have the skills that complement social media. You have reached your peak cool in your mid-20s. Now, there's a lot of angry millennials on YouTube. They're arguing that the side part needs to continue. The side part needs to continue. They're arguing just about everything. Eminem is the best rapper. They argue everything, and it's too late. They still wear their skinny jeans, and they're like Gen Y. So I don't know. They reached their peak cool in their mid-20s, and they had their max influence. Now it's your turn. You guys are having the influence. And basically, boomers and Gen X, they value grit, whereas you guys value hard work, but you're a little bit more liberal financially, you're conservative financially, but you're liberal socially. That's really what you are. So I think they disengaged. You guys disengaged with a lot of politicians in 2022 after January 6th, when that Stop the Steal controversy happened. I think a lot of you disengaged because, the boomers are moving on. The boomers are leaving, and we're going to have a lot of millennials. But ultimately, you guys are going to change the world because you're voting more now, and the first Gen Z was just elected. So you're about ready to kind of take over, which I think is awesome. So you definitely care more. I'll go back to this bathroom issue. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's like North Carolina, South Carolina. You care less about which bathroom people can use and more about how to conserve water. That's just the way you are. You are more concerned with conserving water. However, Gen Z is going to dominate political office in the future. So 2024 plus, we just had the first Gen Z elected. You guys are about ready to take over. And you're going to make the world a much better place because you value diversity, equality, and you have a lot of empathy. There's food insecurity, there's global warming, there's pollution. For most of you, I think, we talked about FIRE, becoming financially independent, retiring early. But after you do that, you are going to set up foundations and give away money. Let's say you work for Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley. You might do that for a few years, but for you, making a difference is important. Probably more important than money. And I think as digital natives, you are better positioned for future success than the Y generation. So you will have all the entrepreneurial solutions to solve all the global issues. I don't know if you feel the weight. Like, do you feel pressure about global warming and pollution? and all the social issues that are happening, do you feel pressure to fix those problems? Do you feel you do? Do you feel like we are making progress? Like, are we making progress on those societal issues?
I think it's just going to take a really long time. Like, you can't fix pollution in a year. It's going to take like 20, 30 years or something like that.
I agree. It's going to take a while, but I think it's going to fall on you guys. It's unfair, I think, because the boomers and X created it. But if anybody can do it, it's you guys.
I think we'll start it, but it's going to be a generation after this that finishes it.
It could be, but you're gonna make a lot of progress. And I put the PPP down there for the people, planet, profit, because this generation, I know you're focused on profit, but you can actually take care of people and the planet at the same time. So I have no doubt that you guys are the most phenomenal generation, and you're gonna have a huge impact. So let's just I just advanced the wrong way, so I just want to make sure I get to the right one. We got one more. Okay. So Gen Z is going to emerge victorious. You guys are the influencers, and you have the ability to pivot careers on a dime. All the boomers are leaving. You guys are going to have so many jobs. We have full unemployment. Only 62% of the labor force is participating. So, you did experience some loneliness during the pandemic. I know you did. During the pandemic, you experienced loneliness, but you recovered incredibly quickly. I was amazed at how, remember when we were doing all those Zoom sessions? You guys came back so fast. But, and again, you only see diversity if it's absent. So if I show you a picture of all white male executive board members, you're going to notice that. You're still experiencing this digital dependence. You definitely have device addiction, but we did that to you. We gave you all these devices, and it's dopamine. It's in your brain. So that's why a 13-year-old girl checks Instagram 47 times an hour. It's the dopamine and the fear of missing out. So, I think, you spend a significant amount of time on Instagram with your digital friends. Some of that is what I call perfect life exhibitionism. So, you notice that everybody's stuff on Instagram, they all have the perfect life. I don't know if anybody's life is really like that, but I think you recognize that it is perfect life exhibitionism, and it's not really the way the world is. It's just the way people portray things. So, just back to Gen Z, I think that you're being rushed. And I feel sorry for you because you're being rushed into older as the boomers retire. The boomers are retiring at $50,000 a day right now. And there's all these jobs, and you're going to have to fill them. And we really don't have enough people, but it's going to be great for you because you're going to be managers, directors, vice presidents, senior vice presidents, and then CEO, CFO, CMO, COO. So you're being rushed into this career as the boomers all retire. And without millennial participation, remember, half the millennials are living in their parents' basement. So the participation level, only 62% of Americans work. I don't know what the rest of them are doing, but they're not working. So you guys are going to leverage your mastery of digital transformation, and you're going to save the planet. I think you're going to make the planet a better place. A lot of people doubt Gen Z. I have all the confidence in the world that you are going to make the world a much better place, probably a beautiful place, and you'll leverage all this digital technology. You're going to save the planet, And you're going to reverse all the harmful stuff that the boomers, Gen X, all the infrastructure, politics, you guys are going to fix a lot of things. You're right, it's going to take time, and there's a lot of pressure on you guys to do it. But you are totally underrated. People have no respect for the talent and the skill and the ability of Gen Z. Just looking at all these YouTubers, Gen Z just gets slammed from all sides. The boomers, X, millennials, everybody slams Gen Z, and you're the most talented generation I've ever met. So I will end it there. That's the end of my episode number 4, talking with Gen Z. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for being here. Thanks for participating. How many dimes are there in a dollar?
10.
How many nickels?
20.
Okay, we've got to ask you a tough one. What is any number to the power of 0?
1.
See, you're brilliant. You're absolutely brilliant, right? Like, if that was Times Square and they were interviewing it, they would never get that. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good day. That's it for episode 4.